Hello, my name is Michael Uyttebroek, and I'd like to do a presentation today on the 7 main storage banks, mostly based on the book by Guido Moosbrugge, but also some extracts from some other books here, which I will show you. So there's the title, and so the other 2 books are Wiedergeburt, Leben, Sterben, Tod und Trauer, which is roughly translated as Rebirth, Living, Dying, Death, and Grieving by Billy, as well as About the Fluidal Energy, respectively, Fluidal Powers and Other Things, Questions and Answers, also by Billy Meier. To summarize, here's an interesting section from the Wiedergeburt book, pages 97 and 98. In the becoming and passing of the human being, i.e. in the becoming and passing of the personality, it is guaranteed that all and everything of the human life, every thought, every feeling, every word, every idea, every motion, all nuances of the voice, and all other things and concerns are stored in the storage banks, and indeed equally in multifold form, thus namely in the planetary storage banks, as well as in the cosmic storage banks. However, ultimately, everything is still stored in the storage banks of the level of the overall consciousness block. Thereby, it is guaranteed that anything and everything of the human life and every individual personality is recorded and stored for all great time, whereby never an iota of a personality gets lost. Precisely that, however, guarantees that for now in unconscious and later in conscious form, with higher consciousness-based development, the deposited impulse-based data of the storage banks can be retrieved when the corresponding frequency of the storage banks is created by each new personality, and these are therewith able to establish a connection, through which then impulse-based information from the storage banks can then be retrieved, which as a rule penetrates into the consciousness via the subconsciousness as inspirations and cognitions, whereby again evolutive steps occur, which lead to higher cognitions as well as to knowledge, love, and essence of wisdom. We will be listing the 7 main storage banks. This is the first one. It's the creational overall consciousness block. And just before I go into it, I'd like to just describe what this picture is referring to. So there's this creation energy realm, fine material realm, where the overall, the creational overall consciousness block remains. And there's also an overall consciousness block which comes in with the spirit form on day 21 into the fetus, along with the consciousness block. Now, if you're familiar with these terms, if you're not familiar with these terms, you can refer back to other presentations that I have put together about reincarnation, which describes the functions of each of these different blocks. Okay. And you can see that there's a connection, there's a line connecting the overall consciousness block with the creational overall consciousness block. And of course, the overall consciousness block that is connected with the spirit form is a creation of the spirit form. So the spirit form creates this overall consciousness block. And there's a small dotted line that connects the overall consciousness block to the consciousness block, which is the ego, the personality, and the consciousness of the human being. And that's created essentially by the overall consciousness block. Okay, so, and that consciousness block always, it's an incarnation, it's a new personality in each life whereas the spirit form and the overall consciousness block are reincarnating factors. So, all right. 1, the overall consciousness storage block. And that's the terms for the different storage levels are coined by Guido. So they're Guido Moosbrugger from the book Diversikum. So you'll hear different terms: overall consciousness storage block, or the creational overall consciousness block. There's anyway, it's all the same thing. From About the Fluidal Energies book, Billy goes on to say, everything created in the life of the former personality, as for example, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the love, etc., is retained in the planetary storage banks, as well as those of the overall consciousness block, and is never lost anymore. The information impulses of the old personality with regard to all knowledge, its essence, respectively, the wisdom and all other things, after its dissolving by the overall consciousness block, exists only in the storage banks. On the one hand, in the overall consciousness block storage banks, and on the other hand, also in the planetary storage banks. Everything is therefore stored twice. From an article by Christian Freiner on this topic, here's an extract. After clarification of the facts, the following situation presents itself. The term OCB, or overall consciousness block, is used for the purely creation energetic block of the human being, which is constantly present in him, her, as part of the creation energy, as an all-knowing factor of everything which is learned in all lives. Consequently, it forms the human overall consciousness block, which together with the spirit form, respectively creation energy form, enters into the embryo on the 21st day after conception and begins to be active. I added this in. There is also the creational overall consciousness block, but this always remains in the creation energy realm. Christian goes on to say, however, since both overall consciousness blocks are connected with each other in an impulse-based manner, the human being during his/her life can also draw information from the creational overall consciousness block and use it for his/her consciousness-based evolution. And from the book About the Fluidal Energies, respectively fluidal powers and other things, regarding the storage of the spirit form. All right, so this is not one of these storage blocks listed as the main storage blocks, but nevertheless, it is a storage factor. And here it goes on to say what that pertains to with regards to the spirit form. So all worked out impulses are stored on the one hand in the planetary as well as the overall consciousness block-based storage banks, while the only purely evolutive, valueful impulses are also stored in the spirit, respectively, in the spirit form. The spirit form only extracts from everything worked out all that which is the ultimate in wisdom of all knowledge. That is the final outcome, the results, the quintessence of everything, the essence of the knowledge, that is the wisdom. And still there's one more storage factor, which is that of the fluidal energies, which the human being generates, and it saturates the skeleton of the human being as well as other material things, and that stores all the idiosyncrasies of the human being, and it's quite an interesting topic in itself, but that's very extensive, and that is not going to be addressed in this presentation. We're just talking about the 7 main storage banks. So, number 2, the individual planetary storage block. Each individual has all of the information regarding them stored, as well as that of all former personalities of the same spirit form lineage. In Diversikum, by Guido Moosbrugger, he writes, it stores, this individual planetary storage block, stores distinctly and completely all that which is individual of the human being. For example, all thoughts, feelings, etc. In addition, there is also the storages of the animals, the creatures, the plants, and the matter. In this block, absolutely everything of every single human being is stored. Not only are all spirit energetical values recorded, but also all thoughts, feelings, ideas, wishes, the voice and speech, every blink of an eye, every movement of the hand, all capabilities, all actions of all kinds, but also positive and negative values in relation to the behavior of passive and active life forms, as well as various natural events such as earthquakes, floods, conflagrations, I'm not sure, conflagrations, I think you say it, solar eclipses, sunrises, etc. Each storage block consists of 7 main levels, which in turn are subdivided into sub-levels, conceivably like a card index that is arranged according to certain subject headings. There exists, for example, a level for spiritual values such as knowledge, wisdom, truth, love, etc., or another for material values, another for individual positive or negative life conduct. All of these levels include the corresponding impulses in a completely neutral form. Also, all impulsations of a human being, the consciousness-based further development or language, medicine, art, technology, space travel, and much more is stored in its own storage levels. Although every human being is a unique personality who is an individual personality, who radiates individual personality swinging waves with a very distinct frequency, it happens from time to time that, for example, someone can imitate or repeat the voice of a deceased person, although she has never met this deceased person. In another case, someone speaks, for example, in a foreign language that is completely unknown to them. Occasionally, someone can display quite special capabilities of a long dead person. For example, by she being able to paint like Michelangelo or perform like an artist of the past, for example, composing music that is confusingly similar to that of Mozart. Such extraordinary behavior, according to the explanations from Billy, can be attributed to 2 causes. On the one hand, it is possible that a very similar swinging wave frequency can, as an exception, penetrate into a foreign storage bank, whereby the storage capabilities of the deceased can be made usable. On the other hand, the stored capabilities can, however, also be retrieved through an unconscious or conscious trance state and maintained for some time. However, Billy also explained that at present, no human being on the earth is in the position of consciously producing such a state of trance, but that human beings who produce such a state unconsciously, as a rule, are subject to a pathological schizophrenia. Storages of all kinds remain unchanged, not only during a human being's life, but rather over billions of years. This guarantees that everything that a human being has learned in all past existences in terms of knowledge, wisdom, and love, etc., never again is lost. In every further life, the human being is then unconsciously hit by corresponding negative or positive impulses and information that promote his or her evolution. And from the Fluidal Energies book, in addition, through the subconsciousness, connections to the storage banks are created from which information is withdrawn and forwarded as inspirations of the subconsciousness into the consciousness, through which the actual mental evolution and therefore also the evolution of the knowledge and the wisdom are set in motion. If the human being thereby suddenly becomes conscious of things and truths here and there as if out of the blue, then this occurs in the form of inspirations of the subconsciousness, which are triggered by the fact that certain thoughts and feelings create strong connections to one's own storage banks, from which impulses are withdrawn, which then appear as an inspiration of the subconsciousness. I just wanted to add something very interesting. I was reading that in the subconsciousness, Billy states that all of the frequencies from all the previous personalities are stored there. So that's also pretty amazing to consider. Number 3, planetary overall storage block from Diversikum by Guido. It includes collectively all storage values of the individual planetary storage blocks. The planetary overall storage block contains all information, respectively, impulses of all active and inactive life forms of an inhabited planet. It also consists of 7 main levels and many sublevels, as do also all other storage blocks. From the planetary overall storage block, the human beings draw permanent, completely unconsciously, information and impulses that are useful for their evolution. Only human beings with a very high consciousness develop are in the position to consciously retrieve information from this block that pertains to their own or a foreign personality or foreign personality matters. Okay. And from the Fluidal Energies book, Billy writes, now, if a planet is destroyed, then its storage banks migrate, in quotes, as a whole and integrate themselves into the galactic storage banks. And if the galaxy is also destroyed, then its storage banks integrate themselves into those of the universe. Number 4, system overall storage block. It contains all the storage values of all the life forms in an inhabited solar system. 5, the galactic overall storage block, or the galaxy overall storage block. It contains all of the storage values of all the life forms in a galaxy. Universal overall storage block. Okay, so it just in passing, the little diagram up there, it's the 4th belt of the creation is the material belt. And so that's what we call the universe. It includes not only its own contents, this storage block, but rather also all storage values of all other storage blocks that exist separately from this storage block. And just to throw a wrench in the works, I wanted to bring up something from an earlier presentation. Regarding the 7 dimensions of the creation, more on this topic was explored in an earlier presentation. Suffice to say that our creation has 7 dimensions, each with 7 belts. So you can count the 7 rings there, and there's a very small center one. And with the 4th belt being a material belt. And in each of these material belts, countless different space-time continuums exist. Therefore, each of the 7 dimensions or universes would also have their storage banks, as well as the different space-time continuums contained therein. So, 7 dimensions, each one having a material 4th belt, which we call a universe, and those would have storage banks, and then the countless different space-time continuums contained in each one of those material belts would also have storages. And finally, we have number 7, which is the creation overall storage block. And in Diversikum, Guido explains, it contains nothing individual at all and is therefore completely creation neutral. Here, the entire knowledge of all storages is deposited, including that of the creation spirit itself, whereby the possibility is given for the creation to progress in its own evolution. The creation overall storage block includes the essence of the entire creation evolution or of the universe. The high fine fluidalness is by far the highest in this storage block. When asked if the information in the storage block could be lost, such as with a computer, which crashes or its hard drive is destroyed, Billy explained, a crash like that of a computer is impossible because in this case, the creational principles function perfectly on the whole. Everything is stored wherever life prevails that evolves itself, entirely creationally law-based. And this also guarantees that the knowledge, the love, and the wisdom, and everything evolutive that is taught and learned can spread in the entire universe. Without this, it would not be possible for the evolution to spread throughout the entire universe. So there must be a network in the entire universe. It is exactly the same as with the television stations that are spread throughout the entire world. Everything is broadcast and transmitted from one station to the next. And so the knowledge goes out into the world, and so it is also in the entire universe. And if you're wondering about this odd shape that you see before you, here is an excerpt from Stimme der Wassermannszeit, or Voice of the Aquarian Age newsletter, number 89 as of December 1993. And there's several points, but I'll just naming the first 3 lines. 1, creation is the immeasurable mystery suspended in immeasurable expanse. 2, creation is identical to the universal consciousness, which guides and prevails in the being of consciousness. It is a double helix, egg-shaped configuration that simultaneously constitutes the universe in its growing expansion. Its pulsating double helix arms live as spiritual energy while rotating against each other. And 3, the universe is creation's internal and external body. And last but not least is a summary of the different storage bank names, which you see here. And I would like to finish off with an interesting section from Wiedergeburt, Leben, Sterben, Tod und Trauer by Billy on pages 62, 63 regarding meditation on death. The meditation on death, the mental and feeling-based self-engagement with it, inspires the human being to concern himself or herself ever more deeply with the transitoriness of the life, and therefore also of the transitoriness of his, her own person. And all the cognitions to be gained from this lead to the fact that the mental feeling-based meditative activity and with the death brings more and more insights and cognitions through which the gaze penetrates into the creational laws and recommendations. The eyes are actually opened, and it is recognized that life and death form an inseparable unity. Through this, in turn, the cognition matures in conscious form that every human being and also one's own person must sooner or later leave this material world, and that it is necessary to lead one's life in a reverent, virtuous, and evolutive wise, so that as many positive values are deposited into the storage banks of the planet, the universe, and the overall consciousness block as is possible in the first place. So thoughts are not only deposited in our planetary storage bank, but also in the throughout the entire universe, universal storage banks or cosmic storage banks, and the overall consciousness block. This benefits the next and the new personality, which together with the rebirth of the spirit form, moves into a new human body with this, along with the new ego and the new consciousness block. This, however, is a cognition that every human being must work out for himself or herself, and indeed, even if the facts are explained and described to him or her by a wise teacher. If the cognition, however, is worked out, then this automatically helps the consciousness, respectively the personality, to turn further towards the creational, spiritual concerns, laws, and recommendations. In addition, meditation on death, the mental and feeling-based self-engagement with it, is an extremely effective procedure that helps to extend the practice of meditation to the whole of life. And with that, I say thank you very much. Salome. Till the next presentation.